Thank you very much for this honor, and it will remain in my heart. And I'm truly grateful to Netralayam, to Dr. Love. Actually, I remember he called me even before the elections were there, and it really touched my heart. It was such a sort of an encouragement for me that I should go to the next ladder. Thank you very much, and thanks a lot. I think I'm between y'all and dinner. I'll try my best to make it as interesting as possible. But believe me, if you hear this talk, because as I understood all of it, it is a learning for us, so do be attentive and don't start looking at your phones. So we now know that every single patient of ours, whether it's a simple cataract or a complex cataract, they may whether it's a simple cataract or a complex cataract, if he decides that he wants a premium IOL, however much you might tell him that you may be challenged in a particular case, he does not understand that. And intumescent cataracts are not actually the same, and they are quite different in different scenarios, which is what I'm going to be telling you in the next few minutes. It could be that the anterior capsule is quite flat in this intumescent cataract. It could be elevated and turgid and intumescent. It could be that the status of cortex could be quite milky with a floating nucleus inside, or it may not be milky, it might have a mature cataract. It could be that it looks white and opalescent, or it could be hard and brown. It could also be that it's a cataract where you see on the slit lamp itself, besides ASOCT, the water clefts which are there, which tells you that it's going to be a real challenge when you're going to operate on these cataracts. Now, we all clearly understand what is a round rhexis. It is that kind of a rhexis which will stretch, which will allow you to do a phacoemulsification, rotation of the nucleus, implantation of the IOL in the back, and gives that kind of a shrink wrap effect around the IOL. But again, this rhexis could give away like this in an intumescent cataract, and this was first described by David Perron in 2000, both in American Academy and in ESCRS, where he first talked about this Argentine flag sign. As you can clearly see, this is how an Argentine flag looks like. And the incidence is as high as 3% to 28.3%. So we all know that decompression of the capsular bag is the key. So how do you do it? You could just go into the side port, make a small tiny puncture, and ensure that the anterior chamber is deep enough and the anterior capsule is flattened, and then you get all the fluid out. Or you could do what Mohan Rajan shows as a puncturexis, wherein 20% of energy is used just for 20 seconds at a 100 millimeter mercury vacuum, goes in at irrigation foot pedal 2, and just 120 seconds punch in the foot pedal 3 and comes up and aspirates the liquid, and that creates a puncturexis, which I've never done. Or you could do a spiral out rhexis, where you start as a small rhexis, but the water fluid is not coming out. You continue to make it a larger rhexis. Or you could use a 27 gauge cannula and just revert the flap, create a flap, invert it, and we just pull on the syringe. With that vacuum, you can keep guiding it and create a small rhexis. Now, what are the important things to understand? It is not just the pressure in front of the nucleus, but there is something in the posterior compartment too, which I'm going to talk to you. Where would you make your decompression? The center or the periphery, and why? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you it is not just the pressure gradient of the intralenticular fluid, but also the viscoelastic which you're going to place. I'm going to talk to you about the vector forces which are happening on the capsule of these intumescent cataract, and also about a morphology of intumescence, which is different, which you will understand if you look at the ASOCT picture. Now, what is this residual pressure? Now, we all, as soon as we do a small rhexis, we get all the milky fluid in front of the nucleus, but then there is this posterior compartment which has milky fluid, and the nucleus moves up and creates a rip of the anterior capsular rhexis. So what you need to do is, besides removing the milky fluid in front of the nucleus, you should rock the nucleus so that the fluid from behind the nucleus comes forward, and that gets removed, so that residual pressure of the posterior compartment does not cause a rip of the rhexis. The next point is whether a central rhexis or a peripheral rhexis. Now there's a logic for that. If you, all of us have been taught to start a rhexis in the center, if you make a center punch, there's so much of pressure there and there's egress of fluid there. And of course the nucleus pushing forward and getting a Argentine flag sign. Now why is it you could do it in the mid-periphery? And the logic is the central capsule, that is the thinnest part of the anterior capsule. And the mid-peripheral capsule is, the center is 14, the mid-periphery is about 21 or so. So according to the Laplace law, the thinner the capsule, more is the pressure created which is there. So if you do it in the mid-periphery, where the capsule is thicker, the rhexis extension is less likely to occur. Then there are different ways of doing it. You can make small 2.5 small rhexis in the mid-periphery. And then what you could do is, after you have made the rhexis and you have removed all the milky fluid, you make a tangential nick and a perpendicular nick and then carry on and complete the rhexis as has been shown. Or you could use a 18 gauge needle, and with that 18 gauge needle, because of the larger caliber of this needle, go in and make a small punch in the mid-periphery and get all the fluid out, and then you have the anterior capsule bowing concavely and then complete your rhexis. Then the third question is, how much viscoelastic you're going to inject is going to create the problem. The Argentinian flag sign is because of the posterior lenticular pressure which is happening, whereas there is a thing called reverse Argentinian flag sign, wherein you inject viscoelastic in an open capsule where you have made a rhexis, and that pressure could cause a reverse Argentinian flag sign. Now I'm going to show you in this example. The rhexis is likely to extend. I'm going to the side port with my cystitome, trying to do that little maneuver, ensuring that I'm getting the rhexis toward the center, but look, the rhexis is still extending. So what I do is, watch what I'm doing. I'm going to the side port where I already don't have good access and injecting viscoelastic in that area itself, and the rhexis is extending. What should I have done was, when I knew that sub-incisionally I'm not able to approach, I should have gone into the other side port and tried to get the rhexis back, or injected viscoelastic in this region away from the area of rhexis extension and managed to get the case done. So by filling more viscoelastic in an open capsule itself can cause a reverse Argentine flag sign. So one doctor from Thailand, Dr. Panath, who is the president of APSCRS, what he suggested was, keep the IOP low as 20 millimeter mercury, use your coaxial IA, go in through the side port with just the BSS, no viscoelastic, make a small nick and aspirate the liquid from the side port, and then go back and complete the rhexis. Now what is the other thing, the vector forces? Now how do they play? You know what all is happening? You are creating your rhexis by using centripetal force. There is centrifugal force because of the zonular stress. There is this posterior fluid from the posterior compartment and the positive vitreous pressure and the shallow eye. So there are so many forces which are coming into play. So you need to be very, very careful and gentle when you're using your manual forces. We also now know that making a linear nick is an absolute doom for us, because of which Dr. Rajendra Prasad came with a microcapsulotome, which is some 7 by 6 diameter and length, and with which he makes mid-peripheral small capsulotomies and then connects them. We've also come to understand, instead of a linear nick, which is going to have a bidirectional extension of rhexis, if you make a C design, it's a unidirectional force which is happening, which will prevent an Argentinian flag sign. The other thing you need to know about an intumescent cataract, what is the difference between shearing and ripping? Now, when you are making your rhexis, you, of course, squirt out all the fluid from there, and then you start creating your rhexis. So once your flap has got created, to some extent, you keep yourself 2 to 3 clock hours away from the flap and keep getting it circularized. But at one point of time, when you realize that this flap at this point of time is going to extend, so you use ripping action that pull it towards the center and go and then get it connected to come back to the rhexis. So there's a shearing and a ripping with which you handle this intumescent cataract. Now this is how it is done. You fold the rhexis here, Go back with your microforceps and grip it at that point where the extension is likely to happen and pull it towards the center and in the direction where the rexus is extending, pull it towards the center, and then the rexus would again restart. You would not get an extension of rexus. The last point is the morphology of the cataract. Now, in type 1 cataract, I'm not going to show you in great detail. You will find that it is just a hydrated cortical fibers on ASOCT. There is no milky fluid, so you are actually able to complete the rexus in a normal fashion. In type 2 cataract, you see there are water clefts. There is hydrated cortical fibers. Some of these water clefts are not interconnected. They are not at all continuous. So you have to be very, very careful because Argentinian flag sign is most likely to happen in this case. And this could be even picked up on IOL Master 800. And in this particular case, it's a case of Fuchs iridochromic hydrocyclitis and a very intumescent cataract. I'm flattening the dome of the anterior capsule with Orogel, making a nick, then opening my main port incision, and then going to the side port. Now I start with a small rexus. Of course, I'm in the center in this eye. I should have done it mid-periphery, but I feel that the rexus is likely to extend. So inject little viscoelastic, go with my microforceps through the side port, try to grip, it's not happening. So go to the opposite side port, try to complete the rexus, and I'm able to grip, I'm not able to grip, and then I manage to complete it, and then carry on with my case. Now, this is the type 3, wherein there is intumescence, but there is a homogeneity, there's one opalescence there, that is, it is sort of more liquid, more fluid, not those hydrated cortical fibers. And in this type 3, what you can do is, this is the kind of, you go into the side port, you squirt out all the fluid, it's sort of milky fluid. Already the dome of the anterior capsule looks a little concave. Go back and inject some cohesive viscoelastic, flatten the dome, and then slowly start your round rexus. Now, most of the milky fluid has been come out, but you keep trying. But any point of time you're ready to change your tactics. But this is called an onion peel rexus or a spiral out rexus, where the rexus is kept smaller and smaller, and gradually it becomes larger and you complete your rexus. Now this is a type 4 where the surgery is again quite straightforward. Dami et al., they told us that ASOCT gives you a lot of information about the fluid clefts and the challenge of Argentinian flag sign which you could have in these cases. So what are the pearls in intumescent cataract? Keep the eyes soft. Give oral glycerol, Dimox, maybe mannitol if it's a hyperopic eye. Stain the anterior capsule, use cohesive viscoelastic, don't overfill it, optimally fill it. Ensure that you make your side ports, not your main port incision at all. Complete your rexus. Do a mid-peripheral rexus if you can, or start with a very small rexus. Go in and remove all the fluid deep into the capsular fornicis. Then start your rexus. And this was not a type 2 Argentinian flag sign, so I'm able to do a small rexus and then go on and then make a tangential nick and enlarge my rexus and complete the case. Now this is again a small rexus, but it's not a very hard cataract, so I'm able to do a phacoemulsification in this particular case. And after doing my phacoemulsification, I go tangentially, enlarge the rexus by making a small nick and complete the rexus. This is a case which I want to show you before I sort of nearly come towards the end, where I'm staining my capsule, I'm injecting cohesive viscoelastic, then I make my main port incision, flatten the dome of the anterior capsule, and start my rexus very intelligently. I think there is not much of fluid coming. I'm nearly completing it. And as I keep going on, look carefully. I think I've done it. And as I'm ripping, I feel that the rexus might extend. But I've sort of come nearly towards the end of it. So I think, do I wait? Do I inject viscoelastic away from that area and try? Do I try my little Bryan's technique wherein I have to pull the rexus towards the center? Do I use my microforceps? So I go back, inject viscoelastic, of course, in that area. And then, if you look carefully, I try to think I've done it all the right way. I go back with my cystitome, which was not right. I should have gripped it with a microforceps. I keep bringing the rexus, nicely getting it centripetally. I'm sure I'm going to get a continuous rexus in this area, but look, I have a rip. So now I have a full cataract in the capsular bag. I have an anterior capsular tear. So what I do, I have to bring down my phaco parameters and do my phacoemulsification in low flow parameters, ensuring that all my chopping maneuvers are done away from the region of the rhexis extension, and do my continuous chop. Keep looking at the rhexis here, whether it's everted. As long as the capsule, that area of flap is everted, that means it's not going to be a complete wraparound. Bring these pieces to the supracapsular area. You can protect the endothelium, but this is not the time to be continuously operating in a capsular bag which has already got an everted flap. Complete my phacoemulsification as I'm showing here. Until this far, everything has gone off well. Now I'm removing the cortex from this place, and I managed to place a lens such that the haptic is away from the area of there. So then, what is it about Argentine flag sign? There are two things you have to note. When the rhexis is extending, ensure that the anterior chamber doesn't get shallow. The other thing is be very careful in rotating your nucleus or rotating your IUL, because all of this can cause the rhexis extension. The last things which we need to know is what I had already shown you in that video. Till the flap is everted, you are safe. And the minute it gets inverted, you have to convert to an SICS. And this was a study wherein they have analyzed 26 eyes in which only 4 eyes had an everted flap getting inverted and had a PCR. So basically, the last thing which I have to talk is flax in intumescent cataract. So basically, flax is the right way to go because it's going to get you around rhexis at all times is what you think. But what actually could happen is, as soon as the flax starts lasering, there is an egress of fluid. So when there is an egress of fluid, there's some obscuration which happens at that point of time. So you may be left with areas, skip areas, where the rhexis may not have got completed. So normally in a flax, you would not inject a dye in these cases. But in this particular case, because in an intumescent cataract, you're not very sure whether your rhexis is complete, so you actually go in with a cystitome and sort of do a semi-capsular rhexis. The impression is already there. In majority of the places it's cut, but you would somehow ensure that you round it off and complete the cut. So then, there are so many ways you can skin the cat, and this is the CapVac thing I wanted to tell you. There is this cruciate thing which you create in the center, and use the 27 gauge needle and pull on it, and with that vacuum created, you can hold the flap and complete the rhexis. So there are so many ways that you could do an intumescent cataract, and so many interesting ways I've shown you in the last 15 minutes. I'm sure all of you are so innovative, would have thought of many more, but there's so much of physics and understanding and intumescent cataract, and that's what I wanted to tell you. Thank you very much.